Top of the day, beautiful people. Ray, Vinette, Set Apart Living, Shayla. Hey, girl. Hey. Hey, girls. Hey. Okay, y'all. All right, beautiful people. Happy Wednesday. It is August the 10th, 2022, day 182 of year 4 of reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets. And of the 4-year consecutive day count, we are at day 1200. Day 1200. And that is consecutive days being here with the exception of taking the Sabbath off. And we're picking up on page 437. Y'all, we halfway through this book. Tabitha, hey girl, hey. We halfway through this. I was looking at it yesterday. I'm like, I was going through because you probably noticed I'm making little thumbnails for each video. And I was like, let me count how many thumbnails. I'm glad I put it in the playlist because the playlist total up all the videos. I made an Oahspe playlist. And I can't believe when I looked at it, it's like 105 videos. We've done 105 videos so far on Oahspe. We've been doing this going on almost 4 months now reading this. It don't even seem like it's been 4 months reading this. We're halfway through it. It's 875 pages. We're on page 437. It's amazing. It's amazing how much ground you can cover just by being consistent on a daily basis. Yo, this never ceases to amaze me. Aji Shalom. Key. Blessings, blessings. All right, beautiful people. Father, we are honored that you've chosen to wake us up to the truth. All right, y'all. Chapter 23, page 437. When at Yesonitus, I'm sure I'm probably still saying his name wrong, but I'm gonna just keep going. Forgive me. When at Yesonitus, generals and their hosts went through Vidu and Japheth and Arabinia, they concerted with the gods who had in charge the inspiration of Capelia, Moses, and Chine. And not only did the angel generals remove the Druhas from the mortals, but inspired mortal kings and queens. Excuse me. Every time I take a sip of water, y'all ain't see me drink the water. Every time I take a sip of water, I belch a lot. Sorry. And not only did the angel generals remove the Druhas from the mortals, but inspired mortal kings and queens in those great divisions of the earth to issue edicts against magicians and priests who consulted with the spirit. So remember, when we left off at yesterday, they were going through why, well, one of the last things that went through was going through why ancient manuscripts and books were destroyed, right? Because just to sum it all up, the creator said, if he didn't destroy or have the people or allow the people to destroy the ancient books, we'd always be looking for wisdom going backward instead of focusing on the present now, getting present day information for our generation today. He said he wanted us to think for ourselves, not to latch on to the ancient sages and stuff. He said, because someone was Judas anyway. So burn them all. Yes, I know my Torah is burnt. I authorized it. Auntie, hey girl, hey. Amen. I'm going to read what Anita said. She said, "Greetings, my dear Faith's family. This is another beautiful, blessed day to get knowledge from on high, and we pray for the great spirit to give us wisdom to use the knowledge." Yes, and amen. All right. Verse 2, page 437. Jehovah has said, "It shall be a testimony in the latter days unto the inhabitants of the earth of my proceedings, not with one division of the earth only, but with all places. For they shall in after years search history and find that in the same era, in these three great divisions, the earth and kings and queens issued edicts against spirit communion." They also outlawed that as well, right? That was in the last chapter yesterday we read. Linda, Shalom, Tiffany, Yibu Sawu Bona Yaya. "And this fact shall be testimony of my cycle of bond, wherein man shall understand that I come not in one corner of the earth only, and to one people only, but that I have them all in my charge, as a father that knoweth his own children." Shebrew is in the house. Hey, girl. Hey. Verse 3, page 438. "Neither gave I unto them the same aspirations, for one I send westward to circumscribe the earth, one I build up with a multitude of languages and a multitude of gods, and the third one I build up without any God save myself. And they shall understand that where there are many languages, there are many gods worshipped. Where there is one language, there is only one worship, even me, the great spirit." And after me is reference number 7. And down at the bottom of the top of the page, reference number 7 says, "Even I." Verse 4, "For in Cosmon I will bring them together, and these diversities shall be as a key to unlock the doctrines and languages of the times and seasons of long past." I'll read that again. "For in Cosmon I will bring them together, and these diversities shall be as a key to unlock the doctrines and the languages and of times and seasons long past. Man living away from other men becometh conceited in himself, deploring the darkness of others, and great nations become conceited of themselves and their doctrines. Each one of the great peoples saying, Behold yonder barbarians. I was the chosen in his especial care. Those others are only heathens and have not been worthy of the great spirit's concern. But in this day I plant the seed of my testimony, which shall come up and blossom and bear fruit in 3,000 years. At Yesonitis and his generals, with their millions of angel hosts, cleared off the Druhas of the earth and the angels of darkness. They extended east and west and north and south around all the earth and all the divisions thereof, into every nook and corner. Day and night at Yesonitis and his armies labored, ceased not nor rested, but in good method went right on, filling all the lowest places of heaven with their transport boats of fire. And the boats sped hither and yonder without ceasing, loading in their ascent with the screaming, frightened Druhas, all under guard and duly preserved against accident or harm by the wise angels over them. Some Druhas were easily captured and carried away, some weak, helpless, and harmless, but hundreds of millions of them mad and most desperate, some evil, fearful in desperate oaths, and foul talk, and dangerous withal. Have a great day at work, Linda. Levon, blessings. Set apart living, grand rising. Verse 9. Day and night at Yesonitis and his armies labored, ceased not nor rested, but in good method went right on, filling all the lowest places of heaven with their transport boats of fire. And the boats sped hither and yonder without ceasing, loaded in their ascent with screaming, frightened Druhas, all under guard and duly preserved against accident or harm by the wise angels over them. Some Druhas were easily captured and carried away. some weak, helpless, and harmless, but hundreds of millions of them mad and most desperate, some evil, fearful, and desperate oaths, and foul talk, and dangerous withal. But others were most pitiful in their love to linger with their mortal kindred, mothers whose children dwell on the earth, and children's spirits whose mothers dwell on the earth. To separate them and carry away such Druhas was the most heart-rending task, requiring God-like souls to accomplish it. Oh. Jehovah has said, as a mortal mother will cling to the mortal body of her dead child till her friends must tear them apart. Oh, Lord, have mercy. I hope this is about to make me cry already. I'm already having a morning. Trying to keep my emotions under control. Dang. Okay. I should have read ahead, prepared myself for this. Okay. All right. Jehovah has said, as a mortal mother will cling to the mortal body of her dead child till her friends must tear them apart, the while all souls who took, I'm sorry, the while all souls who look on are brokenhearted because of her love, even such is the bond betwixt the spirit of the dead and the mortal left yet behind. Okay, take a couple seconds. Pamela, get yourself together. All right. But when my wise angels look upon them and perceive they are carrying each other, I am really having a hard time reading this. Hold on. Okay. I can do this. Okay. Maybe I take a sip of water. Hold on, y'all. I'm gonna get it together. But when my wise angels look upon them and perceive they are carrying each other down in darkness, then shall they be torn asunder, and the spirit shall be taken away and provided for ultimate resurrection, and only permitted to visit the mortal kin under due guardianship. On the battlefields of the earth were on the battlefields of the earth were hundreds of millions of spirits in chaos, still fighting imaginary battles, not knowing their bodies were dead, knowing naught but to curse and fight, roving over the battlefields, and with not a way save by capture and being carried off. Thus did Atyasonitus and his mighty host clear the earth. But of their great labors and wonderful adventures, 1,000 books might be written, and thousands of heroes singled out, whose great achievements overwhelm one's belief because of the manifested love and power. And yet, not much less were the labors and adventures of Eusebius and Eugsadicipe and her 6 heavenly places, where his Etherean host labored unceasingly, preparing places and keepers and nurses and physicians and teachers for the delivered Druhas, the thousands of millions. Jehovah said unto Eusebius, thou shalt assort the Druhas, the peaceful to themselves, the dumb to themselves, the mad, the chaotic, and all other of my afflicted ones, providing sections and places for them, and teachers and nurses and physicians, for they shall be delivered out of darkness also. Yea, every one of them shall become as a star of glory in heaven. And Eusebius and his gods developed the 6 heavens of Eugsadicipe. Keep messing the same word up. Eugsadicipe, established places for the tens of millions of Druhas, and provided order and discipline and altars of worship and schools and colleges and factories and all things whatsoever required in a primary heaven. Oh, that was a hard chapter for me to get through, y'all. It really was. Okay, chapter 24. Jehovah spake to Lika, saying, Behold, the end of dawn draweth near. Go thou once more around the earth and her heavens, and examine into the labor of thy gods. And thou shalt take with thee thy rapine host, and a sufficient number of heralds and attendants, and such musicians and messengers as thou desirest. And when thou art come to Yatanti, my subjective heaven, thou shalt halt a while with Capros and reestablish it in greater holiness and efficiency. For this is mine only subjective heaven in the regions of the red star. Tiffany, I just saw your comment. Shebrew, I know, girl. Look, and when thou art come to Yatanti, my subjective heaven, thou shalt halt a while with Caperos and reestablish it in greater holiness and efficiency. For this is mine only subjective heaven in the regions of the red star. Behold, the spirits of those that die in infancy call out to me, saying, Tell us, O thou Creator, how is it with the earth? How is it with mortals who dwell on the earth? What do they toil at? Have they schools and hospitals and factories like unto ours? Like unto ours? Have mortals mishaps and trials? And have they roadways and oceans of water on the hard earth? How can these things be, O Jehovah? What is it that mortals cannot go down into the earth and into the bottoms of their oceans, even as we do in the heavens? How didst thou create us alive in the earth? What was the place like? Why do mortals carry around with them such earth houses? Earth houses. That's got to be in the title today. And after earth houses, it says bodies. Why do mortals carry around with them such earth houses, bodies? Cannot they go in them and out of them at pleasure? What do mortals mean, O Jehovah, by mortal life and mortal death? Doth the clay and stone and water they dwell in, the earth body, have life and death? What do they mean by this is mine and that is thine? Shall everyone retain his own glory? Okay. Check on the what? Okay. What do mortals mean, O Jehovah, by mortal life and mortal death? Doth the clay and stone and water they dwell in, the earth body, have life and death? What do they mean by this is mine and that is thine? Shall everyone retain his own body? How do the earth bodies grow? Do they eat clay and stone and water? Where do they get their blood? And do they eat hair that they may have hair? I'm sorry. And do they eat hair that they may have earth hair? Why is it that they bring up not their bodies with them when they are dead? Wear they clothes over the spirit body only or over the earth body also? These are really good questions. The spirits, the spirits who died in infancy are asking these questions. Great are thy works, O Jehovah. Take me to Yatanti, thy great subjective heaven. We would learn by figures and pantomime the illustrations of the earth. We would learn by thy panoramic heaven what mortals do, how they live, and what their schools are like, how they have contrived to teach the corporal senses by corporal things, how their boats are made and propelled, how their vehicles travel along upon the solid earth. Jehovah said, For which reason, O Lika, thou shalt see to it that Yatanti be perfected unto this instruction, as well as to arouse from stupor the spirits of the dead who desire not to rise up from the earth. Lika told the Rapine host Jehovah's words, and he also gave command to his chief. Accordingly, as soon as all things were in readiness, Lika committed the throne of Jehovah in Theovrakistan to his vice goddess, and Lika and the Rapines with their attendant hosts departed on their journey. And after vice goddess, um, it has reference number 8, and at the bottom it has to his vice god. Verse 12. Accordingly, as soon as all things were in readiness, I'm reading it over. Accordingly, as soon as all things were in readiness, Lika committed the throne of Jehovah in Theovrakistan to his vice goddess, and Lika and the Rapons with their attendant hosts departed on their journey. Now, since the time of Lika in the plateau of Theovrakistan, it had become habited by thousands of millions of angels, and they were high in the grades, so that the officers of selection were already preparing them by the millions for brides and bridegrooms to Jehovah. And there were thousands of heavenly cities beside Yoganaquatra, which were now in beauty, gaiety, refinement, and delight, with music and rites and ceremonies most magnificent. Then there were officers over these officers, whose place it was to sort and arrange the inhabitants of cities, and others over these, for each 144 cities, and yet another over these officers, and he was called Marshal of Theovrakistan, and he was of the same rank and marshal and he was of the same rank as the marshals of the host of Lika, conferring with the marshal in chief of Jehovah's throne. And that's the end of chapter 24. Chapter 25. Jehovah said to Lika, finish thy visit and thy inspection, my son, in all places of Hada on the earth, leaving the land of Japheth to the last. And thou shalt go hither at the time of Chaim's resurrection, and descend with thy ship, and take him up from the earth. And thou shalt bring him with thee to Yoganaquatra, where he shall remain the few days at dawn, where he shall remain the few days that dawn remaineth. And when thy host ascend to Etheria, thou shalt take Chaim with thee, and make thy home his home until such time as he may be taught the ways and powers of the higher heavens. For since his corporal life is sacrificed for the resurrection of men, he shall receive especial care and assistance in heaven. Lika had been previously informed by the god of Chaim as to the time Chaim would die and be burnt up, and his ashes scattered to the four winds, and the regathering up of a corporal form of Chaim, and the 7 days' duration thereof. So Lika shaped the course of his Otavan according to the instruction of his messengers, who had been appointed for that purpose, so that he should reach the field in time to raise up Chaim before the multitude. The god of Chaim had prophesied to mortals through his ward that a fire ship would descend from heaven on a given day and take Chaim up to heaven. Accordingly, a great multitude of mortals were assembled in the ash field, where they cast the ashes of the dead, watching for the heavenly ship, of which matters Lika had been previously informed by his messengers, and Lika had in turn informed the god of Chaim the time he would appear with the ship, that he might cause Chaim to walk in the midst of the field, and so be caught up. And all these matters were carried out to the hour and minute in the hands of these great gods. And Lika caused the fire of the ship to be made visible to mortals. And the size of the ship was 10 times larger than the field of the dead, so that when the people beheld the light of the ship, they feared and trembled, and many of them fell down, bewailing that the world was coming to an end. And God caused Chaim to walk out in the field, and Lika sent down a whirlwind and took him up into the ship in the presence of tens of thousands of mortals assembled. And Lika bore his course now for Yanaquatra, for the end of the dawn of Bon was at hand. Chapter 26. We'll be at 25 minutes. We'll make a good time. Lika sent messengers to all his gods and lords to install their successors and bestow them, after which the gods and lords were to report in Theovrakistan, ready for the cyclic resurrection. And he commanded them to bring their Ethiopian host with them, save such as chose to volunteer to remain until the next day, 200 years. Lika had previously sent word by his swift messengers to Ethera, to Lissa, goddess of Tiana, Tinanakak, in Ethera, next to Hogil. He said unto Lisa, my resurrection will be 8 links. Each one, Facebook went out. Y'all good? It clicked out. Okay. Lika had previously sent word by his swift messengers to Ethera, to Lissa, goddess of Tia Nanakak in Ethera, next to Hogil. And he said unto Lisa, my resurrection will be 8 links. 6. I caught it. Okay. Lisa sent word back to I'm sorry. Nope. I gotta go back to the beginning of verse 2. Okay. Lika had previously sent word by his swift messengers to Ethera, to Lisa, goddess of Tianakak. It's like my fourth time saying this word. Tianakak in Ethera, next to Hogil. And he said unto Lisa, my resurrection will be 8 links, each one equal to 8,000 million brides and bridegrooms. Send thou a cowpon to deliver them. Cowpon, Cowppon, cowpon. Lisa sent word back to Lika saying, O Jehovah, I am delighted with the command of thy son Lika, chief of Beta Puisa. I will deliver the chain of Cowpon. Then Lisa gave her commands in Tianakak to have her builders construct the cow pond, and she also set her officers to work, selecting such hosts as she would need for her great undertaking. She had been notified in sufficient time, for it was a matter of great magnitude, even in the Etherian realms, And so perfectly were Lisa's commands carried out that not one day's time, too much or too little, was wide the mark. And then she embarked with her host for the red star, the earth, with her 1,000,000,000 trained resurrectionists on her long journey, 20,000 million miles. And still, at every graduation, there's always a goddess that comes. Remember, we pointed that out before. There's always a goddess that comes to resurrect the brides and bridegrooms. At least up to this point, what we've read, all the way up to page 442, has always been a goddess. And so perfectly were Lisa's commands carried out that not one day's time, too much or too little, was wide the mark. And then she embarked with her host for the red star, the earth, with her 1,000,000,000 trained resurrectionists on her long journey, 20,000 million miles. Jehovah had said, carry far my brides and bridegrooms, make them to know the magnificence of the heavens I have created. House them not together in a small corner. Let them feast their souls on the splendors of my great heavens. In the meantime, Lika and his hosts and Theovrakistan were getting ready for the ceremonies and for the ascension. The gods with their hosts were now coming in from every quarter of the lower heavens, bringing in their harvest and quartering them in the places allotted by the marshals. Most conspicuous and beloved of all was Ahura. Next to him were the 5 true gods, Enan, Enjek, Enlay, Enneol, and Enyith, with their heavenly hosts restored to them. For it was through these 5 gods that the 3 mortals, Capelia, Moses, and Chine, had delivered the faiths of Vidu, Japheth, and Arabinia. These 5 gods had in 5 years changed the mortal dominions and laws of Vidu and Japheth, and sent 4,000,000 faiths on a westward journey round the earth, and have firmly established the all one in the 4 great divisions of the earth, and had delivered from bondage all the faiths on the face of the earth. Brian Shogi, shalom, Miss Amazing Wonder, shalom. Yahweh, shalom, shalom. Verse 10, page 443. Great also was the work accomplished by Atyasonitus and by Eusemis and by the gods that had delivered the hills and knots and by many others. So good and great were the works of them all that a history of any one of them in 5 years' labor would make a book that a man could not read in a lifetime. Wow. And they had left successors to carry out what they had founded, so that all the lower heavens were in order, system and discipline, such as not had been for 2,000 years. The Druhas of the earth were removed away from mortals. The battlefields of the earth were clear of the chaotic spirits slain in wars, so that the whole earth and her heavens were delivered into a new condition in the way and form of Jehovah's light. And this was the ark of deliverance and bond. Then descended Lisa with her chain of cowpon, with her ships of fire stretched wide as the earth, and the host of Theovrakistan, the brides and bridegrooms, 64,000 million sons and daughters of Jehovah stood waiting, watching, nervous, but filled with inexpressible delight. And they saw the cowpon coming, knew the mission of the mighty goddess Lisa, daughter of Jehovah, arrayed in spotless white. The 64,000 million stood, shuddered at the etheric current, the whirlwind of the higher heavens, stood the exalted affianced of great Jehovah. Nearer and nearer came the mighty sea of Etherian fire, and nearer till it landed at the plateau of Theovrakistan. Then came forth Lisa, saluting and being answered by great Lika, Jehovah's son, proceeded before Jehovah's throne. Then Lisa demanded in the usual form why she had been summoned in Jehovah's name. Lika also answered in the usual form to bestow Jehovah's affianced sons and daughters. After this, each of the 5 gods of the earth took their host and bequeathed them to Jehovah through Lisa, his daughter. But so great and grand were the ceremonies that mortal words cannot describe them. And as for the awe and magnificence, together with the music, could they be described to mortals? Could they be described? I'm sorry. Could they be described to mortals? Understandingly, they scarce could live because of the enchantment. Wow. But there is a time and a limit and an end to all such matters. And so there was to the labor of Lika, son of Jehovah. The hosts were wed, and they marched aboard the great Etherian ships, the Cowpon. Lika and his hosts went into his own Aravagna, and as it were, with a thread of light, he made fast to the Cowpon and gave the word, the command to go. Then rose up the mighty seas of fire, the 8-linked cowpon and the Aravagna, slowly, steadily moving onward, upward, higher and higher, faster and faster, and still higher. And thus departed Lika with its thousands of millions of upraised sons and daughters of Jehovah. And thus ended the dawn of Bond. End of the book of Lika, son of Jehovah. That book was amazing. All right. So now that we're at the end of the heavenly account, we got to go all the way back. And we only at 34 minutes. Okay. Go all the way back to the beginning of the book of Lika. On page 388. And under the book of Lika is the book of the Ark of Bond. Remember, so when you read it, when it gets to the split pages, it tells you if you read the introduction and stuff, when you get to chapters like this and it's divided by this line, this is the heavenly account, this is the earthly account, and they're going on simultaneously. Always read the heavenly account first, all the way to the end. When you get to the end of that book, come all the way back to this page and start reading the earthly account, right? In the Bible and stuff, we seem to get bits and pieces of the earthly account only. I dropped All right. The the subtitle under the title Book of the Ark of Bond, being a history of Calpurnia, Moses, and Chine, the three great leaders, fourth of the faiths in the time of Lika, son of Jehovah. As the upper book is of the heavens, so is this lower book chiefly of earthly affairs in the administration of God. Chapter 1, History of Capilla. In the mountains of Dharma, in the high country of Yading Hadada in Vidyu, God, son of Jehovah, chose the family of Capilla, by gathering together the scattered faithists and establishing them in safety and prosperity. 6 generations previous to the time of Capilla, God came down from his holy hill in heaven to visit the land of Shem, now called Vidyu. And God called aloud over all that land, but no man could hear his voice. Then God called his angels, saying, Come hither. Behold, here is a great country with millions of people, but they cannot hear the voice of God. God commanded the angels to go down amongst mortals and to dwell with them for 6 generations. And the angels of God said, By inspiration and otherwise, lead ye man and woman together as husband and wife to the profit of the voice of God. Raise me up a man that can hear me, for I will deliver the Father's chosen. The angels of God, 500,000 of them, then came down to the earth. The angel Hieratax was commander over them. He divided his angel host into groups and allotted to them certain places in the land of Vidyu where they were to dwell and to labor. And right here on page 389 is a picture of what is supposed to be Capilla. Okay. I don't know who these two dudes are. Look like they whispering in his ear. All right, verse 8, page 390. In those days, the faithists were known by the names Vedi and Parsi and Haya and Sayatahoma, besides various other names of less note. In some places, they were slaves, in other places, serfs, and in still other places, hid away in wilderness amongst the mountains, being non resistant and timorous, having suffered great persecution by the idolaters of Dias and other false gods and lords. Chapter 2. These are the generations of the scattered tribes contributory to the bringing forth of Capillion. Forgive me now for messing up some of these names because I can already look and see I'm going to have a time with some of them. Verse 2. And Brahma, begotten of the Lord, Hathiv, who begat Ranod, who begat Yade, who begat Orvarana, who begat Chesam, who begat Haitaya, who begat Riviat, who begat Dor, who begat Avra, who begat Lutha, who begat James, who begat Yanhad, who begat Visha, who begat Hayomya, who begat Wathcha, who begat Sarata, who begat Hirivista, who begat Samatrav, who begat Gat who begat Thurin, who begat Vrisaga, who begat He Sim Wachi, who begat Ratha, who begat Yas Shorvat, who begat Capillion. That wasn't so bad. Know ye then the way of God through his holy angels, and profit ye in the light of his resurrection. Capilla was a natural born Iesu, and also a natural born Suis and Sargus. Dude had it all. God said, Behold, man shall not only learn to bring forth seedless fruits in his garden, but also learn that all flesh tendeth in the same direction toward barrenness. And as man draweth nearer and nearer toward the light of Jehovah, so doth his race become less prolific. And when man attaineth to be one with the all light, behold, he is Iesu also. So remember this happened with who was that last person? Him and his wife. Um, Remember, he told him, he said, look, keep on going. 18 years, I got a special gift for you. His son Hog, what was his name? Brahma. Brahma. He towards the end of his life, he became fully Iesu, right? By walking in the ways of the most holy and just practicing all that he knew, right? That was his gift. In 18 years, he was Iesu. All right. God said, hold on. Let me just go back to verse 6. Verse 6. And as man draweth nearer and nearer toward the light of Jehovah, so doth his race become less prolific. And when a man attaineth to be one with the all light, behold, he is Iesu also. God said, by diet and by fasting, Iesu can be attained. Listen, I must be heading on the road to being Iesu, my G, because y'all heard my story yesterday. Like, I feel this great drawing. Like, for years, Pamela, you have to fast. Pamela, you have to fast. Pamela, get it together, girl. Learn about fasting. Francis, love, power, and wisdom, brother. Trina, hey, girl, hey. Look, okay, I'm just saying. I would like to think I'm headed in that direction. I really would. We all have high hopes. Listen, verse 7, page 390 at the bottom. God said, by diet and by fasting, Iesu can be attained, even by many who have it not. But the natural born Iesu standeth more to the way of Jehovah. When Capelia was born, a light in the form of a crescent appeared above his head, and the voice of God spake out of the light thereof, saying, this is my son. By him will I overthrow the governments of the tyrants who have persecuted my people. Tick for Hager, hey. When Capelia's mother was pregnant, the angels of Jehovah, under the archangel Hyratax, stood guard over her, thinking holy thoughts day and night, whereby the mother's soul ran constantly to heavenly things. That's beautiful. And when Capelia was born, behold, Hyratax appointed a host of 144 angels to be with the child day and night. Into 4 watches of 6 hours each divided he the guardian angels. So the angels of God taught Capelia from the time of his birth, and he became wise above all other children. But of the way in which God ruleth over nations for the glory of the Creator, consider ye the history of this deliverance. Jehovah had suffered the power of the kings of Vidu to become centered chiefly in Yoko Rana, king of Afghanistan, of the capital Obloski, a great city dedicated to Deus. Yokorana held 40 provinces and 400 cities tributary to himself, and every city furnished one governor, and these were the royal council of King Yokorana. By the laws of Afghanistan, the oldest male heir succeeded to the throne, but in the case the king had no male heir, then the king's oldest brother's male heir succeeded the throne. Therefore, every king desired a son, but Yokorvana was frustrated by the plans of the angels of Jehovah. For a higher tax, Chief Lewis had said, I will not only raise up an heir to thee, Jehovah, but I will have dominion over thy enemies to thine own glory. For by inspiration I will lead the King of Kings to marry with a barren woman, and because he shall have no heirs, he shall become a tool in my hands for the deliverance of faithists who are persecuted and outlawed. And in those days, whoso was of the seed of the worshippers of the Great Spirit, Ormaz, was outlawed in receiving instruction, so that the chosen, the faithists, were held in ignorance, lest a man of learning might raise up amongst them and deliver them. And the angel of Jehovah foresaw that Capelia should be a learned man and acquainted with the cities of the royal council, for which matter the angel Hyratax provided the chief king Yokorvana to be childless and to desire an heir as successor to the throne. When the king consulted the oracle, behold, the angels of Jehovah had possession, and they answered the king, saying, Put thy wife away in the dark chamber for 9 months, and she will deliver into thy hand a male child who shall save the crown from thy brother's child. The king told the queen, who was near the time of limit for women, and she would not believe. Nevertheless, she also went to consult the oracle, and the angel of Jehovah said, have not kings killed their wives in order to obtain one who shall have an heir to the throne? Dang. Oh, you ain't bearing me no children? Off with the queen's head. Just provide me another queen, please, and make sure she can have babies. Verse 18. The king told the queen, who was near the time of limit for women, and she would not believe. Nevertheless, she also went to consult the oracle, and to her the angel of Jehovah said, have not kings killed their wives in order to obtain one who shall have an heir to the throne? The queen acknowledged this, adding, what then shall I do? For of a truth, I know I shall bear no child. The angel said, do as the king hath said, and the angels will bring a male child unto thee in the dark chamber, and thy maids and thy servants shall see to it that no other woman entereth into thy place, and they will testify that the child is thine own. Nevertheless, thou shalt under penalty of death inform the king otherwise. On the other hand, the angels of Jehovah foretold the father and the mother of Capelia, even before his birth, that the child would be carried away and given to the king, Yokorvana, known for his cruelty, as the most hated of men. And the angel said, moreover, neither shall ye grieve for loss of the child, for Oahspe will make him a deliverer of his people. And it shall come to pass, even in the day that the child is delivered to the queen, its own mother shall become its nurse. Sounds just like what happened with Moses. Thus it came to pass, and in the time of the birth of Capelia, the angels carried him into the city of Oahspe, into the king's palace, and to the queen's arms in the dark chamber. And in the same instant of time, the angels illumined the chamber, so that all the maids and maid servants saw the child and the light withal, and they were frightened and fell down, beseeching Darius for protection. Chapter 3. When Yokorvana went to the temple to do sacrifice, the high priest besought him to consult the oracle in reference to the child and for his kingdom's sake. And he so consulted the oracle, and the angels of Oahspe said unto him, O king, thou before whom all people fear, hear thou the angels of heaven and be wise, for thy kingdom's sake and for Capelia. Behold, thou hast maintained the custom of thy forefathers, and caused to be slain on the altar of thy god Dais 12 young men and 12 virgins for every day of the 12th new moon, that by blood thy God might triumph on the earth, and that thou mightest be the most feared of kings. And thou hast subdued all the regions of the earth near to honor thee and thy laws. Therefore the God of heaven saith, thou shalt no longer pursue the sacrifice of human blood, but instead thereof make sacred the blood of the Lamb, which shall be called the Lamb of thy God, Dais. And in the day of thy first sacrifice, thou shalt bring Capelia to the altar, and sprinkle the blood of the lamb thou hast slain upon his head, as a blood offering to thy God, and he shall be called Capelia, the Lamb of heaven. To this the king assented, and Capelia was accordingly sprinkled with the blood of a lamb, which was sacrificed in the altar of the king. Thus ended the first of the evil edicts of the gods of Vidu, and from that time after, mortals were no longer sacrificed to the gods by the consent of the kings. Capelia was called Yokorvana's son, and he was taught all things which it was lawful in those days to teach a prince. And because he was prepared for the throne, he was made acquainted with the kings and governors of all the tributary cities and countries in the land of Vidu. Of the matters of Capelia, herein after revealed, know ye that in all things he was directed by the angels of Jehovah, Oahspe. When Capelia had attained maturity, he besought the king to leave for travel, saying to the king, is not the greatest wisdom that which cometh by the eye and the ear? And is it not wise that he who may someday become king should acquaint himself with his kingdom while he is yet young? For then he will not only see and hear better than if he were old, but he will have time to weigh the nature of the government as to its best adaptation to the people. To this the king replied, Thou art already wise, my son. Thou knowest sufficient of the earth and her people according to the laws of the ancients. Therefore, to travel for wisdom's sake would be great folly. Thine eyes and ears are too sharp already. Better it is for thee that thou seest not the people of thy kingdom. For the time may come when thou shalt need to use great severity upon them. Therefore, to be strange with them, thy sympathy will not lead thee away from justice. Capilia said, Thou reasonest well, O king, and because thou art wise, have I no credit in being wise also? For it must be true that a son hath his wisdom from his father. And since thou hast so wisely put me off with thy arguments, answer me this. Is it not profitable to a young prince, before he hath the cares of a mighty kingdom, to go abroad and enjoy the pleasures of the world? The king said, There are but three pleasures in all the world. Eating and drinking is one, sleeping is another, and the presence of women is the third. Why then shall a man go abroad? Like, bruh, just let the boy get out the house for a minute. You gotta answer for everything. The king said, There are but three pleasures in all the world. Eating and drinking is one, sleeping is another, the presence of women is a third. Why then shall a man go abroad? Capilia said, And yet thou hidest the true reason as to why thou desirest not. Hold on. Capilia said, And yet thou hidest the true reason as to why thou desirest thy son not to travel. The king said, If thou tell me the true cause, then thou shalt go whithersoever thou desirest. Capilia said, First, then I will say to thee that I rejoice because thou didst deny me, for I so loved thee, O king, that I knew no joy but to remain with thee. And moreover, thou so lovest thy son, thou wouldest not have him go far from thee. The king was so delighted with this answer, he said, Of a truth, O prince, thou hast guessed aright. And if thou find it in thy heart to leave me for a season of travel, then will I indeed bear with thy loss until thou returnest. Capilia traveled for 9 years. I thought this boy about to be gone for a month. Look, verse 14. Capilia traveled for 9 years, and he went to the uttermost extent of the land of Vidu, east and west, and north and south. And because his nurse, who was, in fact, his real mother, had told him thousands of tales about the persecution of the faithless and their sufferings, he sought to obtain information of these scattered people, but as yet he knew not he was of that race. At the end of 9 years, Capilia returned to Yata Hadada, rich in knowledge as to the inhabitants of Vidu. And when he came before the king, Yokorvana, where he was received in great honor, he related the knowledge he had obtained of the country, its extent and grandeur, and its hundreds of great cities and innumerable people, to all of which wisdom the king lent a willing ear, and he declared Capilia was the wisest and most learned man in all the world. And now was come the time when God, Son of Jehovah, came to establish Jehovah and began the deliverance of the faithless and to collect them together in the places designed for them. Oh, yeah, 54 minutes. Chapter 4, we done read a lot. Okay, chapter 4. The word of Jehovah, Ormaz, came to Capilia, saying, Son of heaven, hear thou the voice of the ever-present. Capilia asked, How sayest thou, the ever-present? Jehovah, Ormaz said, Behold me, I am not of the king's laws. I am the maker of the kings. They have made a law against me, the ever-present. They have scattered my people. They have denied my people the right to obtain knowledge. Capilia said, Mine eyes and ears have proved these things. What shall thy servant do? Jehovah said, Thou shalt deliver the slaves unto freedom and provide them places to dwell together according to the laws of the ancients. So remember, he was an Iasu from birth, right? He could sue us, he could sog us, and he could hear the voice of the Great Spirit. So now, after all this time, after his learning and his growth, he was able to hear Jehovah when he spoke to him directly. Listen, let me just start over at verse 1, chapter 4, page 394 at the bottom. The word of Jehovah, or Maz, came to Capelia, saying, Son of heaven, hear thou the voice of the ever-present. Capelia asked, How sayest thou, the ever-present? Jehovah, or Maz, said, Behold me, I am not of the king's laws. I am the maker of kings. They have made a law against me, the ever-present. They have scattered my people. They have denied my people the right to obtain knowledge. Capelia said, Mine eyes and ears have proved these things. What shall thy servant do? Jehovah said, Thou shalt deliver the slaves unto freedom and provide them places to dwell together according to the laws of the ancients. Capelia said, O Ormaz, Jehovah, why hast thou put this upon me, thy servant? Why gavest thou not such matter into the hands of the Vrix, Faithis? Jehovah said, Thou art thyself of the race of Faithis, Vrix Vedi, and hast been prepared for this labor from the time of thy birth. Go thou and find thy nurse that careth for thee in infancy, and when thou hast her alone, say to her, Nurse, the voice of heaven hath come to me, saying, Capelia, thou art the race of Faithis. How sayest thou? And the nurse will say to thee, my son, alas me, thinkest thou I would deny thy death or thy mother's death? For is not such the law. For is not such the law. Capelia went and inquired of the nurse, and she said to him, my son, alas me, thinkest thou I would not be thy death or thy mother's death? For is not such the law? Capelia answered, Such is the law. But tell me the truth, and I swear unto thee, both under the name of Deus and under the name of thy God, Jehovah Ormaz, that all thy words shall be secret with me, as the gods will. Am I an adopted Vrix? The nurse said, Behold, thou hast loved me all thy days. From mine own breast wert thou fed. Shall I then lose thy love and so die of a broken heart? Then Capelia made oath before the gods, and therefore she answered him, saying, I am thy mother, O prince. The angels of the ever present came to me in the moment thou wert born, and carried thee into the queen's arms, and the king knew not, even to this day, but thou wert his. Capelia said, Why hath this been done unto me? The nurse said, Hearken, O prince, the king's wife was barren. The king desired a son who should be heir to the throne. Capelia interrupted, And thou barterest thy flesh with blood with the queen for this? The nurse said, Patience, O prince. I am of a race that owneth only one king, the ever present. Respect me, therefore, till thou hast learnt the whole truth. The angels of Ormuz came to me before thy birth, saying, Alas, the chosen people are persecuted and abused, scattered and despised. But because they are faithful and most virtuous, the ever present will come and deliver them. Then I said unto the angels, What is this matter unto me? Behold, I am myself but a servant and can do nothing. Then the angel answered, saying, Thou shalt have a son, and shall call his name Capelia, and he shall be the deliverer of thy people, for which purpose he shall receive great learning. But because great learning is denied to thy people, thy son shall be adopted by the queen, and the king, believing it is his own son, will render unto the child learning and power also. And I said unto the angel, Flesh and blood of me are nothing, if I can thereby serve Jehovah or Maz. Verse 16, Capelia said, Since thou committest me to thy God, then am I indeed his. Now, whilst they were yet talking, Jehovah spake to Capelia, saying, I am not come to give new doctrines unto men, but to rescue my people from bondage and to restore equal rights unto the inhabitants of the earth. For this purpose wert thou, O Capelia, sent into the world, because thou wert of the race of the faithest, my voice have come to thee. Because the king imagineth thou art his son, and love thee dearly, thou shalt not suffer from his hand. Go then whither I will lead thee, and it shall be testimony to thee that I am the ever present, moving them by means of the Spirit to come to thee. And after ever present, it has reference letter A. Let's find that. Okay, on the last page of the book of Archabon is the letter references, which is on page 459. A says, it will be seen in the book of Lika that these angels were commissioned to speak in the name of the ever-present. Otherwise, mortals would worship the angels instead of Jehovah. Okay, I get it. So when angels speak to you, clearly they speak as if they are Jehovah, but they're not. They just relaying the message. Kind of like, well, those in the military will understand. Say if there are orders that come down from the captain, your division chief or sergeant or whatever branch you're in, whatever your superior's title is, they will speak as if it's their very own command. Even if it comes from the captain, they ain't gonna be like, listen, y'all, the captain said no. They're gonna be like, listen, this is what we need to do, right? They're gonna speak it just like they have full authority to speak. So when they speak, the angels did the same thing, but when they spoke, they spoke as if they were the voice of Jehovah. So when mortals would respond, they would constantly keep their eyes on Jehovah and not the angels speaking for Jehovah, right? Okay. It will be seen in the book of Lika that these angels were commissioned to speak in the name of the ever-present. Otherwise, mortals would worship the angel instead of Jehovah. 1882 edition. Okay, so let's go back. Verse 18 on page 395. In due time, the prince departed from home, not advising the king of his purpose, and he went as Jehovah led him, and came to Hosagaweth, near the river of Vesuthata, where there was a forest with meadows interspersed, and he found a camp of 4 families, wandering faithless, and they were famished with hunger and ragged. Yes.
In the video?
Yeah, you can. I'll be done in a few minutes, right when we get done with this chapter. It's 32 verses. We're on verse 19 here. Okay, verse 19. The prince. There. Verse 19. The prince, seeing they feared him, said, be not afraid. I come not to persecute or to drive you hence. As ye perceive by my dress, I am a prince. Judge ye not me to be your enemy, come to destroy you. For by the same power ye were led hither, am I come also. This land do I bequeath to you to be yours forever. Cease ye therefore traveling about, but begin and till the soil. Yatithaka the Rabbah said, how sayest thou? Thou wert brought hither by the same God. Then of a truth thou knowest the signs and passwords. Capelia said, none of these things have I learned, but even as there is a legend amongst thy people that one would come of Jehovah and restore his chosen people, so declare I unto you, I am he. That thy ruler is my ruler. Take me in private with thee, O Rabbah, and the ever-present will give the signs and passwords, and thus prove me. Moreover, I say to thee in prophecy, ere 3 sons have risen and said, there shall come to this place hundreds and hundreds of thy people. Now, when the Rabbah had examined Capelia and found that he had the signs and passwords, he wondered exceedingly. The prince then caused wood and stone to be laid in the form of a crescent, and its size was sufficient for seats for 100 people. He said, this is the altar of Jehovah, Ormaz. Let us sit this night, for the Father's voice is with me. During the day, many more came. So by night, there were 100 men, women, and children. And the prince commanded them to sit about the altar of Jehovah. And presently, the voice spake in the midst of the altar, saying, This is my son, of whom it hath been prophesied, one would come to restore my people. Behold, I am the ever present, and not in the figure or image of a man, but I am the all space and place, doing my will through my angels and through the souls of men. Be ye steadfast in righteous works, and love toward one another, and most just to a fraction with all other peoples. With you will I establish myself, even as in the ancient days with your forefathers. Hold on. Verse 24. Capelia then appointed the oldest rabbi as chief of the altar, and this was the first established family community since many 100 years. Start over, verse 24. Capelia then appointed the oldest rabbi as chief of the altar, and this was the first established family community since many 100 years that was assured by a prince that they should not be driven off. On the next day, the prince took the people a little way off, about an hour's walk, and he said, Build ye here another altar, for yet ere night comes, there shall come others even here. Let the ever present have an altar provided unto them. Accordingly, the people fell into faith and built another altar. And when it was finished, the sun gone down, there came many wanderers, faithists, to the place. Capelia said unto them, Come ye to the altar of Ormaz, for he desireth sacrifice. After sacrifice is worship of all whom he blessed. And they went in and sang and prayed, giving thanks to Jehovah, giving thanks to God. Jehovah said, Suffer him I have sent unto you to build 3 more altars at like distances apart, for I will bring my people together for 3 places of sacrifice. On the next day, there came many more wanderers who had escaped from the province of Anasaim, where a war was being carried on against raiders from Tibet, the high mountain region. And Capelia built altars for them also, and to them he also appointed rabbis and chief rabbis. Now, behold, they were without food, and many had been famished for many days. Capelia, perceiving that some of the people were suspicious of him, said unto him, Who hath faith in me of Jehovah? Let him stand with me this night, for the Father will manifest unto us. Not more than 40 came to the place designated, for they feared Capelia was an impostor, and they were assembled. When they were assembled, Capelia tried them and found of a truth that they had faith. And he said unto them, Stand in a circle and join hands, and I will stand in the midst. Yet I know not what the great Spirit will do for us. And when they were thus standing, Jehovah sent a cold wind, and there came down from heaven an abundance of a hayoma, sufficient to feed the whole of the people for many days. Neither knew any man of what ahaoma was made, but it was savory and nutritious, sort of kind of like what we read about they got in the Old Testament, right? Manna. This a ahaoma, Ahaoma. And when they were thus standing, Jehovah sent a cold wind, and there came down from heaven an abundance of a haoma, sufficient to feed the whole of the people for many days. Neither knew any man of what a haoma was made, but it was savory and nutritious. And the people came and ate, and also gathered up the ahoma and carried it home. Capelia said unto them, Because Ormaz hath done this, go ye into the altars and return thanks unto him. And the people did as commanded, and from this time forth, not one of them lacked faith in Capelia. And thereupon he said unto them, This place shall be called Maxsabi, for it is the first colony, Tarak Atu, in all the world, where the Father hath fed his people with his own hand. So the place was called Maksabi, which in Vedic would be Sutta Siti, I speak with food. And this is where we will pause at today, at the end of chapter 4 on page 397. Hold on. I got to do 2 sets of page numbers today. Hold on. 437 to 444. And then we started back here. Look up Ark of Bond on page 388. All right, beautiful people. That is the reading for today. It was really good. Oh yeah, I like what you said from yesterday, Tabitha. See how prayer is the connection between the Creator and Capelia. Prayer is part of the equation. It absolutely is. Thank you for that, Tabitha. All right, y'all. So with that being said, let's go ahead and wrap up for today, y'all. It is Wednesday, August the 10th, 2022, day 182 of year 4 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 4-year consecutive day count, it is day 1200. We finished reading the book of Lika in Oahspe, starting on page 437 all the way to page 444. And after we got done, we started in the book of the Ark of Bond on page 388, and we paused at chapter 5 on page 397. All right, y'all. I don't have anything else. I don't think there are any questions. I just scrolled through the chat, and I think we're good. Just want to make sure. Mom, did I say hey to you? Hey, Mom. Came in a while ago. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it. All right, y'all. Ain't nothing else. I don't have anything to share with y'all today. If I do, I'll post it or I'll wait till tomorrow to tell y'all. But with that being said, Father, we thank you that you are the space and the place. And I love y'all. And we will be back here. Let me call Bella because I told her she could end it. Hold on. Because she's going to have a problem with me if I don't let her end it. Bella! Bella! No. No. All right, tell me she's good. Bella!
I'm doing it.
Bella!
I'm doing it.
Bells!
I'm doing it.
Was she playing with our house?
I'm doing it.
Bella! Y'all see I was calling her, right? I'm gonna have to play back the ending for her. Sure, I was holding Isaiah off because he's trying to end it. I'm gonna go ahead and end it. I love y'all. I see y'all back here tomorrow morning. Oh, there she go. Come on.
Mom, let me end it.
Go ahead.
I
I love y'all, and I see y'all back here tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. He didn't mean to hit you. Girl, go ahead and end it. Oh my gosh, this is too much. Look. Move Isaiah. Bye, y'all. You want to end this one, or you want to cry? You want to end it? Yeah, you hit the button before you did. Come on. You know this is her thing she do, Isaiah. Go ahead. In YouTube. They watching. Go ahead and end it, Tootie. Go ahead and end it. I'm gonna hit the button. Want me to end it? Go ahead. Bye, y'all. Shenanigans don't stop. Bye, y'all.
Mom, look at this.